Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz, your host of the Raiders Report. Before we dive into our 53-man roster projection after OTAs, if you're not already subscribed, hit that sub button. I want a real one to hit that sub button. And some of you might be like, what the hell is a real one? If you're watching a Raiders video in June, you're a sicko. I respect it. That's a real one. Make sure you're subscribed. So coming up here on today's show, I'm going to be giving my updated Raiders 53-man roster projection after OTAs. FYI, I like to do this segment after every single offseason program, whether it's the NFL draft, whether it is OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason. I'm going to do this video multiple times, so I do think it's really important to watch every single one that I do. That way you can see which players made it this time compared to which players didn't make it the last time. Also, mandatory minicamp is next June 10th to the 12th, so I do think that outlining what I think that this Raiders roster could look like is very important. I always start with the quarterback position when I do these 53-man breakdowns, and the numbers that you are going to see next to the players' names are going to be me literally counting out the 53-man roster with you. The numbers next to them are literally only that. They are not ranked. They are me counting out the 53-man. So really no big surprises here at quarterback. It's going to be Geno Smith. It's going to be Aidan O'Connell. It's going to be Cam Miller. I also want to say this because I've seen this on social media. And again, I am recording this before my wedding. I've been seeing a lot of conversations around Aidan O'Connell is going to be the quarterback one. No, it's going to be Geno Smith. Let's go to the running back room now. And, you're going to have a lot of good competition on the bottom of the roster. I definitely think that the first three people that are pictured here in Jeanty, Mostert, and Sincere McCormick are sincerely easily going to make this squad unless a injury or something does end up popping up. So for me, when I built this roster, I also try to think of what Pete Carroll, what John Spytek would do, and I'm going to have them keeping Dylan Laube, who does offer you some of that special teams ability compared to some of those other running backs, that the Raiders have. Like, if you tell me Zamir White or Laube, I probably actually consider White maybe a better between the tackles runner, but because Laube gives you special teams, that's why I'm going to keep him. Let's go to the wide receiver room, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of bodies here for the Raiders wide receivers and a lot of different skill sets that the silver and black could potentially look at. To me, I'm trying to build the best overall squad for somebody like Geno, for somebody like Ashton Jeanty, and for somebody along the lines of Chip Kelly, and that's what this team's going to do. For me, I ended up keeping 6 wide receivers here. Jakobi Meyers, Bech, Tre Tucker. No surprises there. Tommy Mellott, Thorton Jr., the other rookies that the silver and black drafted. I also ended up sticking with Kyle Phillips, and this one could change. Watch out for Alex Bachman. Watch out for Colin Johnson. There's a lot of competition in that receiver room. I just gave Kyle Phillips the nod because of his relationship with Chip Kelly. And if we're splitting hairs, that's the hair that I guess I'm going to split. The pinned comment, though, coming up here on today's show, I thought it was a fun question since we just talked about wide receivers and we're about to talk about tight ends. Who do you think is going to have more combined receiving yards for the silver and black this upcoming season? If you think it's going to be Jakobi Meyers and Bech, type 1. If you think Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer will get more than that duo, type 2. My answer coming up here after this YouTube ad break. I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to type my 1 because I do think that Jakobi and Bech are probably going to be combined somewhere around 1,600 yards, where I see Mayer and Bowers probably a little bit more around the 1,400-yard mark. Both very talented, both a lot of mouths to feed, and if I'm wrong, believe me, I'm not going to be too upset about it. I like both of them. Let's now go to that tight end room, and Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer are your only 2 locks here, because I do really think that between Shorter, Ishmael, Runyon, Conroy, and Ian Thomas, they're all going to be battling it out for that tight end 3, tight end 4 type of role. And depending on how many offensive linemen the Raiders keep, could depend on how many tight ends they end up keeping. I am going to stick here with 3, and I think that for me, personally, I'm going to keep 3 tight ends just because of how confident I am in Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. No disrespect to Ian Thomas. He'll help out in the red zone. He'll block a little bit. There's just other positions, especially on the defense, that I have more question marks around, so I wanted to keep some more bodies. Let's go to the big boys up front. We know that Spytek values the trenches. I value the trenches. You should value the trenches. And Kolton Miller, Dylan Parham, Jackson Powers Johnson, Alex Cappa, DJ Glaze, and Jordan Meredith, I think are all locks to make this squad. Plus Charles Grant, Caleb Rogers, the 2 rookies that the Raiders also ended up keeping. Last 53-man roster projection, I had the Raiders keeping 9 offensive linemen. Guess what? I'm also going to have 9 offensive linemen in this one as well. And the only difference is I'm going to keep Dalton Wagner over Thayer Munford, and I am basing this off of what has happened this offseason so far, and the fact that Wagner has gone out there and competed, the fact that Thayer Munford did miss a few practices with an undisclosed we don't know. There's also been a lot more reports around Munford kind of being that odd man out, at least people that I talk to. And I think for Wagner, because he's a lot closer to a lot of those other offensive linemen on that squad, maybe that's the tip of the cap of that he gets. Because if you're going to keep 9 offensive linemen, that 9 offensive lineman needs to be somebody that fits the Pete Carroll mindset of you got to go out there and compete. And I know Dalton Wagner competes harder than Thayer Munford. It's just a fact. Before we get into the defense of the 53-man roster, for those that do not know, if you're trying to join the Raiders Report Fantasy Football League, there's a few different ways you can do it. One, if you tune into our live show, I'm always going to give out some deals for raffle tickets. If you don't know that we give deals on this show, then you're definitely new to the program. We are going to be doing a 12-team league, though. 2 spots I'm going to give away in June. Whoever is the Bang MVP, and also if you want to send in a $5 super thanks or a $5 super chat, you will be entered in. We will do that raffle on June 30th. Let's go to the defensive side of the football here. I'm going to start with the defensive ends. Maxx Crosby, Malcolm Koonce, Tyree Wilson are the easy 3. I believe that Rob Leonard and this organization is going to want to try to keep 4 defensive ends. Maybe they want to keep a 5th. To me, though, I kept Andre Carter the last time. This time, I am going to keep Charles Snowden, and I'm going to keep Snowden because I believe if he's on the roster at this point, the Raiders aren't worried about his July 22nd court date that he has and that they're confident that he's going to be out there. I know he's very well liked. I know he's a very hard competitor, and he's long, he's lanky, not very athletic, but this to me I think is the type of room that the Raiders are looking for under Pete Carroll. Let's go to the really big boys in the middle now, the defensive tackles, and there is a lot of concerns, question marks, let's call them, around Christian Wilkins. You drafted Tonka Hemingway, you drafted J.J. Pegues, you also went out and you signed Leki Fotu, Adam Butler got re-signed, Jonah Lalu has done a lot of good things. Now, when you look at this room, there is the, do I want a 3 technique? Do I want just my normal defensive tackle? What exactly are the Raiders going to do? And there's also been a lot of talks about the Raiders doing 5-man fronts at OTAs. You're going to need some depth at defensive line. I think that 6 defensive tackles is the minimum that the Raiders can keep, especially if there are major question marks around somebody along the lines of a Christian Wilkins. And I'll be very clear, if there are legit concerns around Wilkins, watch out for a guy like Zach Carter to be an additional player that they keep on that defensive line. We need help in the trenches. Not saying we don't have a good trench room. Our defensive line is our strongest standpoint on that defense. But because we are going to rely so heavily on that D-line, you got to have a lot of good depth. Speaking of a lot of unknowns, the linebacker room might be one of the most intriguing rooms to watch for the rest of this offseason. Devin White, Landon Roberts were signed this offseason, and these 2 guys are going to make the squad. What's really going to be interesting, though, is some of these UDFAs, like a Matt Jones, like a Jalen Walker. The Raiders recently just signed Michael Barrett from Michigan, so he's got some ties there. They drafted Cody Lindenberg in the 7th round of this past year's draft. They went out and they signed Jalen Smith right during rookie minicamp. Amari Gaynor was a UDFA. Tommy Eichenberg's not part of this regime. Legitimately, there is not a single player realistically that was on this Raiders squad last year that contributed that is on this Raiders linebacker squad that's going to contribute this season. I am going to keep 5 linebackers. I know last year they kept 7. I know after the draft I kept 6. Obviously no more Amari Burney here, but because I'm only going to keep 5 linebackers, this also means if you're counting along with me, I am going to have to keep an extra player, whether that be a corner, whether that be a safety. You're about to find out who that player is here in just a little bit. But before I get into that, if you do not know, it's wedding week for me. I'm recording a bunch of videos before I am off for a week. I am going to get married on Friday, June 6th. If you want to see some pictures, some videos, give me a follow on Instagram at Mitchell Renz 365. And if any breaking news happens, my guy Jeremy Chuggs has got you covered. Make sure you follow him at Jeremy Chuggs. Let's go to the cornerback room now, and a lot of good competition here in this room. And the outside corners is where realistically you should be paying attention to, because the outside corners are where the magic is going to happen. In terms of nickel, I'm still not exactly sure of what the Raiders are going to do here. So because of that, I have the silver and black keeping only 5 corners this season because of what and how they are already using them this offseason. You're seeing a lot of safeties. You're seeing a lot of safeties come up and play in that nickel. And I think Ja'Cory and Eric Stokes, Darian Porter, and Cameron Richardson are all going to be your top 2 outside corners. And then in terms of the nickel, it's going to be Darnay Holmes. And then it is just going to be a little bit of a sprinkle between, I think you can see Jeremy Chin there. I think you can see Isaiah Paul-Mal there. I think you can see Lonnie Johnson Jr. there. I think you can see Trey Harper there. I think you can see Trey Taylor there, right? Like, I think that you could see a lot of these different players potentially stepping up. And what's really hard about this is I like Hudson Clark. I like Sutherland. Good special teams guys. Not good enough to make this squad. Chris Smith, another outstanding human being, but I don't think that he's good enough to make this squad based on what we need. And to me, I'm going to keep 5 safeties. And the reason why I'm keeping that additional safety compared to my last 53-man is because of the way that Patrick Graham and this Raiders defense right now is running at OTAs and running at the offseason. Thomas Harper is the one name that I did not have in my last 53-man. He's on this video today because I'm telling you this right now. They are using him at free safety. They are using him in the nickel. And I've heard from a few people that think that he might be better than Darnay Holmes at this current point. Though, we got to throw in the special teams guys. They're very important. Daniel Carlson, A.J. Cole, Jacob Bobenmoyer to round this bad boy out, 51, 52, and 53. I know it's way too early to do this video, but you know what? Some of your friends probably think it's way too early in the year to watch Raiders videos in June, and yet here you are. I do know that I'm going to leave some people off my list, and the reason why I like doing this video is because I feel like at times the Raiders get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it makes it more and more difficult. It also just helps outline some of the people that don't watch the show all the time what I think of this current Raiders squad. The number one name that I think I'm going to get of who I left off, if I had to guess, I'm going to go with Thayer Munford's going to be a big one. Jalen Smith is going to be one. Maybe Andre Carter could be somebody along the lines there. But there's going to be a lot of different names. Mello Dotson, Chris Smith, Colin Johnson. These were the final 10 roster bubble players, and obviously with some of these guys being a little bit older, you know, not all you're going to be able to keep on that practice squad, but you're going to see a lot of names on that list that I got in front of you right now that will be on that practice squad, that I can guarantee you. Now, if you made it this far in the video, again, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on for videos every single day, even during my wedding week.